Alright, it's red, it's on. Welcome to Software as a, or Life 2.0, or 2.x if you will. Don't know how many iterations you want to go through. Software as a second career. My name is Novella, and I'm a freelancer with Cafe Interactive. And this is DrupalCamp Montreal, and you're in Montreal, in case you were worried. That's where you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you need to leave and go to... No, I'm just kidding. You can. So, let's get started. There we go. This is the intro. It's purple. The sections will be color-coded, so that should help now or later if you want to go back and check out the slides. So what's this talk about? This is a discussion-style section, and we're hopefully going to explore sort of who we are as either people who have or want to change into software as a second or third or beyond career, or maybe people who, for whom software is, your first and only love, but you would like to support those around you who may be career changers. We're going to be asking a few main questions. What kind of challenges will we face? And what kind of advantages do we actually have as people who are changing careers, not just first career people? And then what resources are available? Target audience, obviously, people who have or are thinking about making a change into software as a career change. And then also people who want to be supportive. This might be friends, this might be colleagues or employers. This might even be, family or mentors, things like that. You're seeking to help people who are making this change into software to have a smooth transition and to maintain sort of their position there. There are no actual prerequisites. We won't really talk, we certainly won't talk any code, and we probably won't talk technical things. If we do, one thing that is a great resource for people who are changing careers is just take notes of the keywords and do a DuckDuckGo or a Google search or something later. But don't worry about understanding things now. Oh, also, it's recorded. So if you really get lost, you can always listen to it again. But we do want you to really listen to what others are saying, whether it's just their experiences, whether or not they're complaining or sharing their fears or sharing something that they've overcome. Really keep open ears and open mind. And then share your own experiences and ideas. And very importantly, share resources. So if you, as somebody who has maybe made the transition or is making the transition or has never needed to make the transition, if you know something, no matter where we are in the talk, please just raise your hand, speak up, say anything. Again, I really hope for this to be a discussion-style session. I don't want to talk through the whole thing, although if I'm nervous, and I am, that might happen. So please just blurt things out. Oh, and I forgot to say, ask questions. I'll pose a lot of questions throughout the session, and I hope that you guys will add your own as well. So about us, about people who are changing careers. Who are we? What did we do before? For instance, I was in academia for far too long, and I was in the arts and sciences, the humanities and sciences, social sciences. I did political science and history, and was a translator and a researcher and a consultant. And now I'm not. Now I do Drupal and some JavaScript and some Python and lots of PHP, and I really enjoy it. And in some ways it's completely different from what I did in my former life, and in some ways it's strikingly similar. So I'm interested in what you guys have done. Has anybody done something that's completely not sort of tech? What?
Yeah, basically that's kind of weird because I did 1 year in political science in Concordia, and I got a college degree, Quebec college degree in history.
Basically. In history?
Yeah.
Ah, fellow historian. Nice. And what is your name?
What?
Your name, sorry.
Oh, Joey.
Joey?
Yeah.
Okay. And you?
I studied history also.
Ah, nice. And you're Jessica. I know this. Novella.
But I used to work not in computer science, but it was always kind of related to. Like I did some testing or computer system validation in a pharmaceutical industry, but never really coding or being a programmer, but working with programmers.
So then some things are not so foreign, and some things are still probably very foreign.
Yeah.
And you?
Studying cinema art in the past. And I started coding like basically because of graphic design job, and I started to make website. And I did study in computer sciences a little bit later, but I don't work in anything I did study. Even in the past, I worked like a cashier and management, but nothing. And after that, I switched to computer stuff as a geek.
Oh, great. I know I met someone last night, he was a chef for many years, and I said, well, you can run a kitchen, you can probably run a project. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in microbiology.
Oh.
Then I changed for that's pretty much it.
So is there anybody who has not or does not consider themselves a career changer? Somebody who's always been in tech? Pierre?
Always been in tech.
Always?
I started very young. I'm still doing it.
So, we know kind of who we were. Hi, Matt. And I'm also interested in who are we right now? Why change careers? Why software? And who actually works in software? I know for me, it's, I left academia and I realized that while I had been in academia, I had been making websites for several departments in a university. And as an unpaid graduate student, that might have been something that I could enjoy, to actually get paid to do. So it was something that I had, as a hobby / a side, I'm not sure if you call it internship. And then I decided, this is really something that intrigues me, and so maybe I'll take it further. So has anybody experienced I know while I was doing some research for this session, I met somebody who was a teacher, and he said, he couldn't find work as a teacher. He was an art teacher. And so being laid off, he was sort of pushed into pursuing another career. Has anybody experienced something like that, where maybe their job was not available, or it was just very hard to find this kind of job?
Well, in art it's difficult to work. I was making music too at that time, so I switched by making the website of the band, basically. It started as a hobby, exactly like you.
Oh.
And I realized that, like you, I can get paid to do that.
I might get paid to do something I'm interested in. And anybody else, what were your reasons for maybe considering a career shift?
Well, basically, I couldn't find a job. I wanted to do academia research in microbiology and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I switched because I had to pay the bills somehow.
So why software?
I have a lot of friends, that worked in programming in general and web mostly, but so I switched because I knew there were a lot of opportunities and it was always something that interested me, so I figured now's the time to learn.
So what about it interested you? What caught your eye about it?
Basically, I always wondered how everything worked, and basically learning how everything worked is what motivated me to change into that field.
So you've always been an explorer.
Yeah.
Matt, I saw you raising your hand.
I did a CS degree, and then I went and worked in international development and writing grant proposals and living in other countries. And then I realized that there are no jobs, very, very few people ever get paid to do that. And so then I went back to IT.
Okay, that's an interesting career switch. Yeah. Right on. So let's see. So who works in software? So the site that I am 100% sure that most people here know and maybe love, maybe hate sometimes, depending on the time of day, is Stack Overflow. I know that Pierre knows some about this. I've seen his name on there many times and said, I know that guy. He's probably not wrong. And one of the results of their survey was that roughly, I think it's this year, it's something like 48% of people who responded to their survey and who were developers had a degree in CS. So that's actually less than half. And I think, one of the reasons for, and it's gone down slightly, it used to be above 50%, maybe around 56% a few years ago. And one of the reasons for this is, more of diverse offerings around computer science that are now being given at colleges. But there was still a significant number of people who did not have degrees in, computer science or even, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines. So that was very interesting to me because, the historians of us out there are maybe, we're not as alone as we might think or feel like we are. One thing that was also interesting to me about that survey was that most people who responded to the survey did have, I think it was around 77% that had a bachelor's degree in something. So it just sort of anything. And then it was something like 92% of people had some college. So having some education was very prevalent, but it was definitely not necessarily in computer science or even any IT discipline. So when we know who, sort of who we were and who we are now, I think very, very important is who do we want to be? So as career changers, it seems like, or it's at least felt to me like very exciting, but very scary, like very, very scary. Like, what would I do? Who would I be if I wasn't being, in academia? Like, what? Yeah, I have no idea what to do with myself. So for me, there were three sort of main categories of questions that became very important. And it was, what do I want? What do I actually need? And then what am I willing to accept? For me, answering these questions, and these are answers that have changed for me over the years, but answering these questions have really helped to guide me in, what fields or like subfields of software that I might be interested in. And they've really guided me in what kind of education to pursue, if I was going to pursue any more education. And then what kind of jobs or freelance opportunities that I might want to take up. So lifestyle, can you tell me a little bit about your sort of preferred lifestyle? If you think you're going to work in software, what is your preferred lifestyle? Do you want to work remote or full-time or what? For you?
Work full-time in software and stop doing night shift in grocery stores because I'm doing an unpaid internship as a web developer. So.
Right on. So one of those things would be one job.
Yeah, one job and no night shift.
One job, no night shift.
And having the possibility to move to somewhere hotter, let's say San Jose, for example.
That would be amazing, especially when it's sub-zero here.
Exactly.
So the idea that you could move freely and maybe still get jobs, that you could have just one job and then maybe go home. And for you?
For me, I can live as a nomad because I do contract from state to up north with First Instead, and now that I make more the switch, and like you in the career, it does change, but I can live as a nomad, and for me, it's the liberty that even if I don't do all the money I want all the time, that aspect of my life, I love it so much. I try to be like more like as going to work every day as a marketing coordinator, and my life was awful. And now the way I live because of the software life, I love it. I'm really independent. I think it's a big aspect. You can live as a nomad. You have a base camp somewhere, and you come back, and that's something for me. It's really awesome.
Okay, that could be really important. The option to, like Marla said, live as a hermit. So if you want to be a hermit in the mountains this month, that is what you will be, and you will still be able to go to work. And you won't be late for work. And you don't have to see people if you don't want to. Is there anybody for whom that sounds terrible? They want something completely different? Well, I know for me, I sometimes like seeing people, sometimes not. So maybe for some others, you want to go to work every day, you want an office. You want to see people and be able to grab lunch with others. So it might be your ideal to actually go to a company. For some people, like Marlene, I know you live very far away, and you like the freedom and, like you said, the independence to be able to be 10 hours away and work with people all over the world and not have a problem with that. So for income, what do you want and what do you need? I think these are two right? These are two things that don't always overlap. My partner is always saying, I want to be a millionaire. And I said, well, stop being in academia. The answer to that was no. So we will not be millionaires, but do we need to be? Thankfully, we don't. And the lifestyle that we want, which is to be able to work remotely and to be overseas visiting relatives and still show up at work every day, that's something we can do. So for anybody else, was there something very salient about income, sort of comparing what you want, what you need? No, just the ability to not have to work that night shift at the grocery store?
Well,
that will be something.
you have to be aware of what you accept. What you're willing to accept is really important, the willing, because when you are independent, you're going to accept some contract after that you realize, oh my God, I didn't see the overall. So I think the willing is important to learn.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, these things, what you want, what you need, and what you're willing to accept might not be the same thing. Like Marlene said, some contracts, maybe you have accepted them because you were willing to accept them, but they're certainly not what you want. And hopefully, they'll just be what you need. All right, then one more question for me that was very important with regards to making a change to going into software was learning potential. I know some careers, people can feel like, oh, I'm in a dead-end career, and that is, absolutely horrible. Or they'll feel like, I'm in a dead-end career, but I have golden handcuffs, and I don't care. I'll go to work, and I'll go home and have a hobby that does something completely different. So what about you? Or did you have anything that really spoke to you with software regarding learning potential, how you can always expand or something? I know that for me, learning potential is so important. And in taking on freelance contracts, I often tell Brian with Cafe Interactive, where I work a lot, that if there's no potential for learning in this contract, I'll do it, but but it is what I'm willing to accept. It might not be what I want. And that if there's potential that we can maybe use new technologies, or I can learn something that I feel will really, increase, my interest somewhere else, like we will do that. And so that will also sort of change what I'm thinking that I'm willing to, like jobs that we're willing to take on. All right, so what do we want to do? Can anybody tell me what are some subfields that they're interested in? Sort of subfields of software. Maybe this would be web development, I assume, would be a big one since we're all here. I know some people are very, interested in just doing maybe JavaScript development, maybe only Drupal development, maybe WordPress development. Are there any other sort of subfields that people are very interested in?
Project management with different technologies, like you said, that is interesting, not just using Drupal. That's what I love in project management. We can touch on writing. So I think it's really interesting. And you have to learn and you have to see the overall. So maybe this technology will answer this. That's the thing I love.
Okay, so gauging different technologies for how useful they can be, and then project managing with many different technologies.
Yeah, I think like not just which subfield, but like having a collection of them is really good, because like once you switch things, you don't necessarily want to switch again all the time unless you know what you're switching into,
Sure, okay.
So.
Can you expand on that a little more? So you're saying having a collection of subfields, so web
I was
development
just
and
doing
others.
like Java for a while, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to do Drupal, and it's like, that was really a big change in a lot of things that I had to learn from scratch. And then like, well, I was learning Drupal, I could learn other things at the same time, because Drupal like sort of allies itself with a lot of other technologies, like a lot of front ends, JavaScript, CSS, a lot of ops technologies. And so I was able to learn those other things. Then when I make moves from Drupal to other things, I already know the other things. I don't have to start from scratch again.
That's a really good point. So in looking at different subfields of software that you might want to enter, choosing one that has the learning potential and it itself allies with a lot of different technologies so that you can have a collection of things that you might be able to draw on later if you, again, want to move. One question for me, and I think for a lot of people, is which fields have smaller learning curves? I feel like, you know, there are some fields that may require a lot of learning, and then some that, you know, you can sort of compress into a shorter amount of time in order to get up to speed to the point where you can, you know, apply for jobs or take on freelance contracts and things like that. So that's another question that you might want to ask yourself. And then, of course, which fields have better job prospects and which pay better? Now, these are not always the same thing. I know that, you know, there are certainly some disciplines that may pay very, very well, and if you want to switch into them, you may need a lot more education than you have, you know, to top up, and it may require a very big leap. But then there are yet other fields like web development. You know, it's said to be one of the much, you know, more expanding fields. So there are far more job prospects. But say you would make more money doing, you know, data science, but you may need to go back and get, say, you know, a master's or a PhD in something like data science or statistics. So these are very different questions. They don't always overlap, but they're very good questions to sort of, you know, mull over and ask yourself. So now that we know a little bit about who we are in the room, what are some of the challenges that we face? And at this point, I really encourage you to just sort of like blurt it out. We've probably experienced it if you've experienced it. Building the technical skills to switch careers. It's very, very tough. At the same time, it can be kind of exhilarating. You know, learning something new, wanting to punch your computer until you just want to kiss it. Thankfully, my computer is still intact, so I must be doing okay. What kind of skills do we need? Where can we get these skills? How do we personally learn best? How long before we can start building things? And for goodness sake, will we always be playing catch up with the rest of the field?
Yes.
Yes. So as somebody who has never changed careers, I would like to hear, do you feel you're always playing catch up anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
That's part of the job.
Okay.
If you work in IT, things always change. And you have to keep with it, otherwise you will become useless. And you will have to do it anyway. Or end up in a dead-end career when you do the same thing again and again and again, because you find a niche where you can do that.
Okay.
But then it becomes harder and harder to do.
Right, so like Pierre was saying, if you establish a skill set and you only use those skill sets, you will become either A, useless, or B, incredibly stuck. So even for Pierre, as you know, a tech all the way person, he's always playing catch up, and he'll never stop. So at least that's something that maybe we will always have in common is, oh God, things are changing again. Isn't it great? Isn't it terrible? And one question I like, and people, it seems almost counterintuitive, but people do ask this a lot, I found online especially, how long before we can start building things? And luckily the answer is 0. And the other answer is, you've probably already built something, and you just don't know. For instance, if you've worked with databases, or if you've, or if you've worked with something like Microsoft Word pretty extensively, you may have built macros. You may have architected a database. Can you think of anything else that you might consider a project that's maybe not strictly tech related, but that you've already built?
Use Excel.
Used Excel, okay.
Yeah, collect data, that's what I
Collecting data. Mm-hmm. And in microbiology, is there anything that you would
Not
say?
particularly that I can think of. There's other people doing good work in bioinformatics, but I never dabbled into that.
If you ever had to come up with a workflow of different tools to achieve a task, that's the kind of stuff you do when you do programming. Just not the same kind of tool, But if you had to, okay, I need to put this, these are my tools, I need that workflow, and I will use that tools, produce not finished product, and then use another tool. That's the kind of stuff you have to do in computer science.
Okay. And
it's sort of a technical skill, but there's a lot of project management things that like apply in in IT and also in other fields. And it's also, I mean, the techniques change a little bit, but it's something that that the longer you, like the fact that you need to do project management will always be the case, like, or that somebody in the project is doing project management will always be the case. So like the specific language tools are going to change every couple of months, like that will always happen. But it's one of the few things you can start to learn earlier in your project, earlier in your career in IT that will still be useful at the end. And the longer you've been doing it, like the better you're going to be at it usually. Whereas like all these specific language, like learning a new, like you go and learn Python or something, and then in like a couple of years maybe no one's using Python or whatever. It's a more transferable skill, and it's something that you can use late career because many people drop out of IT somewhere in their 40s.
Yeah, that's true. So to the third question, personally, how do you learn best? This is a question that may impact which field that you go into, but it can also impact sort of how you get there. Is there anyone for whom classrooms are just not an option? I see 1, 2, 3. I see 3.5 hands there. No classrooms, thank you. I regret to inform you, you're currently in a classroom. Is there anybody who just likes to work alone? Okay, so we got this one there. And what about people who really need the interaction with others? Yeah, so definitely collaboration is key.
I cannot work alone, especially study something new. I know it's not working.
So studying something new alone may not be an option for you. Next, where can we get these skills? Can somebody, if you've ever done a switch, where did you start to get your skills?
Basically, I took a course in the Cégep à Maisonneuve, but the big issue I see with that course was like, okay, can I use JavaScript for that course? No, you can't. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of dumb because usually in websites you kind of put technologies together and then you build a website. So I was like, what the hell? So then after that, I quit that course and I started learning by myself with Udemy. And basically, I started watching a guy on YouTube, Eli, the computer guy. I'm sure that a lot of guys know him. And his best advice to start learning tech is like, start building shit. Basically, that's all you do. If you build shit, and then you go, okay, how do I build a relation between a database and my website? You go on Stack Overflow and stuff like that to learn that. And I found also another thing, if you want to get a job, you go see the job you want. You go on the job offer, and then you check this list of skills you need, and you're like, oh, okay, I might need that and that and that, and you'll see where you need to get those skills.
So really tailoring your education to jobs, like specific jobs that you think you might want, and seeing which skills they require, and where else you can find those skills. Yeah, and that can be online or in Cégep or something.
What I'm afraid when looking online or just listening to a guy on YouTube is how to make the difference between what is good practice and what is actually bad practice for the job.
That's a really good question. You're being afraid of learning the wrong way to do things up front.
Exactly.
So, any advice? Yes, Dave, I'm looking at you. You have great practices.
I think finding a community is really good. If you don't, even if you're really, even if you've been learning what you're doing, you have the training, you have everything you think you need, even if then, you still will get lost if you don't know who to trust, who to ask for the right things.
And if you're looking for work, nobody knows that you're doing this stuff. So,
So again, back to the community. Forming that community is important. Any other advice for the worry about building bad practices? Keenan?
Okay, I find that it's going to happen in anything you do, that you do a project and you look back on it, or you get partway through and it becomes very evident that you started off the wrong way, or this thing didn't go the way you expected it to. And so I would try not to worry about the perfect practice or the best practices, in that mistakes will happen, either inadvertently or not. And I think those are the best learning experiences, and that's the experience that you take on to the next project, and whatever else you're going to do.
So your first project might just be ugly anyway. And you will get improved, especially with like groups of people around you to bounce things off of. I saw a raised hand.
I just want to say that one piece of advice that I have is go to the curated source of information. Like Udemy is very good. Most of the instructors are from Google or Facebook, and that gives you a sign of, that is something reliable. It's reliable information that you're going to get from Udemy. Also, use the community. I would say rather than go to the community, use the community also as a tool. For example, when I'm deciding whether to install a module on Drupal, I see how many downloads does it have, what's the rating. It's like when you're going to shop something on Amazon, you look for how the community rates it.
So then there are some sites maybe that when you're talking about watching the videos maybe online, and you're saying that there are some sites, maybe like Udemy would be one example that you've brought up, where the instructors have been vetted by other means. And so they may be, more reliable, or at least we know they got a very good job, and hopefully they have something very good to teach you because of that.
Yes.
And to add to that also, I'm checking for some Udacity degree I can get. So now I'm learning Java, and when I feel quite confident about my skills on Java and stuff like that, I might check for a Google degree in Android development. So it might be interesting. So I can put on my CV like, hey, I have a Google degree.
Well, it's to meet people that sometimes I look at successful projects and I'm trying to meet the founder. That's sometimes when I can talk to the founder, like pension, or ask questions. So this is something that, okay, use this thing, okay, that's interesting, that, and they're going to explain me the way they built it. And sometimes it's going to give me answers, it will be good to learn that thing more specifically. So this way I can achieve, not the same thing, because I think you always have to do a different way in the way you try, but I think it can give you sometimes goal, or I have mentor in this world and I ask them questions, and sometimes it give you, targets, maybe that would be a good target. And just to be with people that know a little bit more about the stuff you want to learn, gonna give you a little bit of, some route, or I don't know, some direction you can take. I think
so finding projects that you think are good or useful, and then looking up the actual people who may have worked on those projects. And I think, as a lot of Drupal people know especially, people are more accessible than you think. Oftentimes, people who have answered thousands of questions, maybe on Stack Overflow about a topic or one or more topics, or people who have built a very incredible module that has so many downloads and really great reviews. These people are actual people who may be willing to, give you advice. And creating relationships with those people. I know, like on Drupal.org, for instance, you can list mentors, people with whom you have made close relationships, and these people can, end up needing or knowing that maybe you're looking for a job or you're looking for work, and these make really good resources as well. Welcome. All right. So the next slide is, how do we deal with the culture? And I think, so software is very famous for being interesting and unique, in some very good and some very bad ways. And some of these make it really tough for people who are changing careers. I know one thing that can be very tough, and especially for career changers, are things like isms. We have racism, we have ageism, we have sexism, we have regionalism, we have lingualism. There are so many isms, and they present real barriers, and these are ongoing barriers. And especially when compounded, so when one or more of these isms are sort of found together, these can present things that make it very hard to, be in the career, even as a first career person, and especially as somebody who's switching careers. Another thing that is important to really think deeply about when you are considering switching careers are the cultural foundations. Especially with software, we find that maybe you might not have the same formative experiences. Maybe you weren't always interested in this, or you did not always have access to this. You were not from a very technical culture, maybe. You don't have these same memories, and you may not speak, with a similar lingo. You may not get the jokes, or understand some of the acronyms. And as a beginner, it can really feel like it's such a hard club to break into, even when people are very nice and supportive. Has anybody had experiences with sort of becoming a part of a group of people? And as we were talking about before, it's so important to find groups of people, even if there are people that say, "Oh, that looks like a bad practice," or "I think this is the best practice," or that there's this new thing. Have you seen it? How have people found coming into new groups and sort of making themselves a part of that? Has anybody had experience with that? They can share.
I got it with Drupal.
Yeah.
Because I come from a faraway area that which people are more construction people. They don't go to school that much, so it's really a different culture. So when I came back here, that's why I came to the association, because it brings you and just Ryan or other people make me realize my own skill that I didn't even saw, like you said a bit earlier. So that helped a lot. So now I'm building a technophone in my area to try to develop other economy, because the economy are bad right now because it's a construction, so it's totally different culture. And I can see, because now we're building something with more 30 people, but we are so small. So that I saw a huge difference when I came to Montreal. So I don't know if that answer, but my culture is not technical. Me, yes, but not where I grew up. No, when I talk technical, nobody really understand. They was laughing at me in the early days. I was telling, hey, one day you're gonna use more internet than my phone. Nobody believed me, and now they look at me and say, oh, yeah, okay, you said it, okay, yeah. So yeah, I think you have to go in group or meet people, otherwise you don't know what's happening too. So
that's interesting. It seems like it's not only been an entrance for you into a new culture, in tech, but then also changed your relationship somewhat with the culture that you came from.
Yeah, that's what was really, yeah. Drupal community, I can say one thing, it does help a lot. A nice community.
Okay, so the next, where is the payoff? So one thing that's important about software, or working at a grocery store, or baking bread, is that you'll be able to eat. Eating is really important. I know, it's so crazy, right? So switching careers into software can present some really interesting challenges that you may not have had to think about before. Like, how do you market these new skills, this Java training that you're getting? How do you market that? When you don't say, I graduated from XYZ University and my Java professor says that I am the Java king, that you don't have this. So how are you going to market this new skill? And then another thing that is very important, I think, is how do you market skills you already have?
Yeah.
So can you tell me a skill that from microbiome that you already have?
Well, I did learn the scientific method a lot, so that can be applied rather easily to most problems, including web development problems. That helps a lot. Organization skills too.
Okay, so you have organizational skills, you have the scientific method. That's interesting to me. How would you, or anybody else, if you have suggestions, put that on your resume if you're making a CV today?
too sure.
So, someone else, what would you say, Keenan?
The ability to analyze and break down problems
Okay.
into workable material or small chunks.
Say something like problem solving,
Yeah.
key component in software. So just problem solving alone is a huge domain of software.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You need to be able to, you can put that as problem definition. You are able to define the actual problem
Okay.
that needs to solve.
So you have skills of problem definition, problem solving skills. That's very important.
And see the overall of a project. It's not something that easy, and sometimes other job can help you because you have to think about human. You cannot just think about the coding. You have to think about the people that are using it. You have social aspect. So I think that can be interesting. I don't know how you write it down. That's exactly.
If you had a previous job for team working, that's something that you don't learn in school, and that's why you are using it.
Very
A
well.
team working teams, being able to be to work alone when needed. That's also something you learn when you actually work.
So
That skill you
self-management.
already have that you can really use.
And this would probably have even come from something like, working as a night grocer. Self-management, the ability to execute, lists of tasks and make sure that, they're ready for testing. And one thing that can be very important, especially if you're doing something, say, something administrative or something related to, say, teaching, is how do you avoid getting stuck? So say, there is a software company that says, you seem great. We would like you to train administrators on, how to use the interface of, Drupal websites. But that's not what you want to do. Maybe you have been a help desk person, but that's not what you want to do anymore. So how do you avoid getting stuck? Has anybody encountered, a time when the skills that they had seem to almost be holding them back?
Well, we can work with somebody else that has it, so this way we can join your force and do something better. While you're on the freelance, it's possible, I think.
Okay.
I mean, you could not put it on your CV.
Just leave it off.
I'm serious. Yeah, there's a thing that you've got a couple of years of experience doing it, but there's enough other things to put on your CV. Just like leave it off and don't talk about it.
Okay.
Like
So leave off the things that you're seriously not interested in doing.
Yeah. If you put it, if it's on your CV, they hire you, then I'm going to come and ask you to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? It's like
That's
hold my card.
Okay. And one thing is that making sure you have enough other things to put on your CV.
Yeah, I mean, you also need that.
Yeah, it's very important, and it can be very hard. And how do you narrow it down? One person that I interviewed, he said, I used to be a teacher, and I used to teach arts, and I'm interested in video things, and I'm really also interested in this and this, and I feel like I have all these new skills. How do I narrow it down? Well, how does he narrow it down? I think you said earlier, looking at actual job listings, figuring out the skills for those, and then having to pick sort of one thing.
I think you have to make different resume depending on where I sell. When I was looking for a job, I don't have the same kind. I have 2-3 kind of with different skills depending on the job offer. So that's a thing. You have to, like you said, you have to remove some stuff and put some. So basically, you cannot make the same CV for every job you apply.
Okay. Yeah, I see some head nods for that. So tailoring your CV toward the kinds of jobs that you want to apply for. And one thing, and I'm not sure if anybody knows, and I certainly don't, there's a lot of hype around these, high salaries in software. You will earn $1 gajillion and 60 cents if you get a software something job by some date in the very near future, and all you have to do is X. So, well, it always sounds a bit, it sounds a bit out there.
Well, if you go to Microsoft EX, yes, but you have to do Microsoft EX.
Yeah. So, maybe there's some, magical job, but I can't recommend you, I'm sorry. But one challenge is that I'm worried about it is that I'm somebody who has changed careers. I don't have, like this completely gold-plated resume that is 68 years long, even though I'm not 68 years old yet. And so I often face, sort of this question is like, sure, somebody else might get it, but I'm somebody who has changed careers. Does that even apply to me? And I don't have an answer for that, but it's certainly something to think about.
I think in some cases you actually end up better off if you're not wanting to do those like big business jobs where you're wearing a suit and tie. If you come out of a CS degree, you're competing with everyone else with a CS degree, whereas coming from another sector, you know about the problems and challenges in that other sector, and so you have already some domain experience with a different set of problems. Whereas like going through training programs, it's like, yes, you're going to be able to do some calculus and like do some scale calculations, but if you're doing brochure websites, does that matter to you? Probably not. And so there's, I think, like, if you're really going through just like the CS degree and you come out with just that, you're in a different competitive marketplace than with somebody who has different background. I tend to think that a mix is always a good thing. Some diversity in the background is good.
I think today's the salary is going down a little bit, and probably too much people. Yes, I know, but you can see the salary is not as high as it was. I don't know where I am, and even on contract, we have trouble to build on the contract, and it's more difficult, I found. So there's something that changed. People doesn't want to pay, or they want to pay, but they don't want to pay for it. It's always a battle, I found those days. I don't know.
So yeah, finding like a niche in project size and stuff like that is a component, I guess, too.
Yeah, I think that's changing.
Yeah.
Those are really good points on both of these questions. There's some of these hype around these salaries, and then, how do we market ourselves? A mix can be the best place. I think it was Matt who said that many developers leave by the time they're in their 40s.
Yeah.
I read one post on Quora that said, where do old developers go? Or where do old people in software go? And many people were like, oh, who cares, who cares, who cares? And one person says, it's not that they go anywhere. They start working for smaller companies, and they start having lives that are not necessarily going to give a blank about what, some big companies or, some disruptive startup is doing. So they still exist. They're just doing other things. And they can now choose that for themselves. All right, now sort of a...
You've got like 8 minutes.
8 minutes, right. I got it, thank you. Living up to the hype. This is sort of it's more on the personal side. But self-confidence is always a big thing. And it comes through. And the statistics have shown that, self-confidence can affect, how much that you ask for, how much you get paid, how much you enjoy your job, how long you stay there, the kinds of people that you meet, the kinds of relationships that you maintain. So how do we, as people who are changing careers, sort of increase and maintain that self-confidence? That's an ongoing question.
The flip side of the question is like, what is imposter syndrome? Because I think coming into it, you're like, I don't know anything, I'm just toiling away, I have small clients that don't understand what I'm doing, nobody understands what I'm doing. And then you go to a conference and someone says, can you lead the discussion because I'm tired? And you go, what? You go, well, you know what you're talking about. And you go, what? But you do, and then you realize you're kind of undercharging perhaps and things like that. So.
Yeah, that would mean someone like Ryan Hill.
Well, it definitely can. I know that's one thing that we've talked about a lot is, are you just feeling like an imposter? So I actually just want to, raise your hand if you've ever had that sort of I might not be as much of an imposter as I thought moment. Like, oh my God, maybe I know more than I think I do. And it's a weird, weird feeling. Sometimes you'll be thinking to yourself, shouldn't I know this? Or is this a stupid question? Or if you're a career changer, or maybe even not, what the hell am I good at now? Who am I now? And then you see somebody saying, hey, I saw you kept commenting on this issue thread. Can you just, take over this sprint table? I'm really tired, and I think that you understand it. And it's that wait, me? Are you sure? Is there anybody next to me? You sure you're not talking to somebody else? So it's a really big challenge. I guess. And it's an ongoing challenge. And especially when you're trying to find your place. And if you've already switched careers and you've been working for a while, sometimes that makes it easier, maybe sometimes harder. And if you're just embarking on it, deciding which route to take. Do you really like web development? Do you want to do something else? Will you find, sort of more confidence somewhere else? These are always scary questions that you're going to keep asking yourself, and probably nobody will ever stop asking.
I think if you put goals and you reach it, it's going to bring a lot of confidence. Like even alone, like doing project and trying stuff, when you reach it, it's like, wow, I can do it. That brings a lot.
Yes, I definitely agree. Yeah, so like Ramon was saying, setting some goals and reaching those goals. And does anybody have any example of some goals that maybe were small, maybe were large, but that they met and they ticked off and gave themselves credit for? It might even be installing Drupal for the first time locally. Or installing Dragé globally.
I think when we start Drupal, it's like, oh, there's a node, there's a view, you don't get it, you don't understand anything. But as you go, at some point, you know it. It's normal. So just this, I felt good at it.
So having that feeling that I get what's going on in this conversation. Yeah, those can all be, certainly very valuable. So I think that we've identified some of the challenges, and then together we've been giving each other some of our advantages and even resources. And I'll end just on time. This should be, or the talk should be recorded, I think, on YouTube, and then also I'll post the slides later. There are a lot more slides, because like any first time that I've given this session, there are 2/3 more slides than I've presented. And luckily we've actually hit on a lot of points during the other slides while we've been talking. So one thing that I would really encourage people to do is, for the rest of the conference, drop words and names and share with each other your experiences. And ask people's names so that you can look them up later. That's one thing that I'll leave you with that I think has helped me probably the most. I went to my first Drupal meetup after having made a few Drupal sites while I was still in academia. And I went to my first meetup, and Ryan, who's a member of ADM, said, "Oh, I think I might have an extra ticket for Drupal Camp Toronto, and if anybody wants it, whatever." And so I contacted him later and said, "Can I get that ticket?" And he said, "Sure." So in Toronto, I came up to him and said, "Thank you for the ticket. Also, my name is Novella, and I'm looking for work." And he said, "Well, who the heck are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm nobody special, but I really enjoy doing this, and I have this background." And he said, "You know what? I think you'd be fun. Call me tomorrow." And that was 3 years ago. So I would really encourage you to find out each other's names, contact info, and just keep up on it, because that will get you the group that I think can really help you switch that career or help others to switch theirs. All right? Thank you, guys.